don't want him to start until it's really 8:30.
Okay.
Hi, Benny.
Hi,
Evening, Mario.
Hi, Benny.
Oh, that's.
You have to go lights, right? No, I didn't, did I?
Yeah.
Here.
Ernie, what would you like? Want this?
no, let me have a glass,
Or want this?
please.
Oh, here's your cup with the ice. I didn't pour it yet.
Here's Norm. Here's Yaakov. Baruch atah Shabbat tov.
This is a cup of-
I'm good.
Okay, let's
That's
finish,
what I want.
God willing, volume 15. We're on
341.
341 Kriya Shema Lamita. So we've already learned the dinim of Kriya Shema recited with Ma'ariv. Shema is also recited a second time at night before going to sleep. The source is that, and that's our tradition of, I'm sure we all have the tradition of saying Shema with our children when they went to sleep. The source of this Shema can be found in the Gemara Masechta Brachos, which states explicitly that even though a person recited Kriya Shema during Ma'ariv, he should read it again in bed. This is in Masechta Brachos, Daf Daled Amud Beis. It's a special mitzvah to read it on your bed. Rabbi Yossi Maikra, Rigzu Val Techto. It's a pasuk in Tehillim. Rigzu Val Techto, Anu Bilvavchem Al Mishkavchem the Domusela. Say Kriya Shema Al Mishkavchem on your bed. More later in the Masechtas mentions a special bracha to be said before going to sleep, known as Hamapil. This is Masechta Brachos Samach Amud Beis. Hanichdas Lisha Amitaso. Whoever when you get into bed, Omer Mishma Yisrael Ad Vayam Shama. You say the first paragraph of Shema V'Havta. Then the Omer Baruch Mapil Chev Leishina Aleineit Tenuma Alafapai Umer Leishon Bas Ayin. Yirosam V'nech Hashem Lokesha Tashkivenu Shalom. V'seicha Kena B'sarasecha V'sargilenu De Mitzvah V'al Targilenu De Avera V'al Tvinu De Chet V'lo De Avon V'lo De Nisoyon V'lo De Bizoyon V'yishlot B'yetzer Tov V'yishlot B'yetzer Hara V'tatzilenu V'pegara Mechalem Roim V'ayi V'aluni Chalamois Roim. Don't give me bad dreams. V'yirhurim Roim Uteimi Tosi Shlema Fanecha V'ha'er Einai Penishana Maves Baruch Atah Hashem Hameir La'olam Kulo B'chvodo. In Masechta Shavuos, we find that some Amoraim added verses to this tefillah that also mentions Hashem's protection. The Omer Aramim Hashem Kidilisani, the Shir Shel Pegoim v'Yeshrim Shir Shel Negoim, Mandomer the Negoim Dechsiv v'Negel Yikrabu Alecha, Umandomer Pegoim Dechsiv Yipol Mitzitcha Elef. The Chozer v'Omer Mizmor LeDavid B'Vorchot Ner Shalom, the capital that David HaMelech wrote when he was escaping from Avshalom. Hashem Marabu Tzari Ad Lashem Yeshua Chaber Chasech Hasela. Rabbi Shua ben Levi Omer Lehu Lahai Kroi V'Gani. He would fall asleep while he was saying these psukim. Hechi Ovid Hachi V'Omer Shua ben Levi Aser Li'Yisrapos B'Divrei Torah. You can't heal yourself with words of Torah. Lahagin Shani. For protection, that's different. So the poskim discuss the order in which Kriyat Shema, the bracha of Mapil, and the other verses should be said. The Rambam writes that the bracha is said first, followed by Shema immediately before sleep. Kishiyichnas Adam V'Tosel Yisham B'Layla Mavarich HaMapil, bracha Mapil Chevlei Shena Shalema, V'Korei Parsha Rishon and Kriyat Shema V'Yisha. The Shulchan Aruch records the halach of reciting Shema HaMapil and many of the psukim mentioned in the Gemara. The Shulchan Aruch appears to reverse the order of the Rambam concerning which is recited first. By the way, the footnote says the Rambam does not mention reciting any of the psukim as the normative practice that everyone should follow. The Rambam only mentions reciting them if one may fall asleep before reciting a Mapil or Shema. Says the Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 239. Koirei al mitaso parsha rishona shel Shema. So his order is first you say the Shema, and then Mavarcha Mapil Chavrei Shena Aleimai. Says the Ramah, V'yikra Kriya Shema Samach L'mitaso. Means when he enters his bed to sleep. Vein Oichlin V'shoisin L'medabri Machar Kriya Shema Shel Mitaso. There's no eating or drinking or speaking after Kriya Shema. Eliyisha Me'ad. You should fall asleep. He didn't know from melatonin. Shnamar, Imru b'valcha v'mishchavcha v'domusel. V'oimer, Yoshne v'seisra elyon v'oimer, Hashem marabu tzari ad l'Hashem Yeshua v'oimer, Baruch Hashem bayom, Baruch Hashem balayla, Baruch Hashem b'shachvenu, Baruch Hashem b'kumenu, Vayomer Hashem el soten, Yigar Hashem b'chad soten, Hashem shomrecha me'at v'ad oilam, B'yadchav kidruchi, the three Birchas Kohanim, Ad Vayasim Chasholem, V'oimer Hashkivenu Ad Tzomach L'chasima. You don't say the last bracha of Hashkivenu. The Mogen Avram explains the rationale for the differing orders concerning reciting Shema Mapil. Mashma de brachas Mapil Yomer Achashma. From the Mogen Avram is pointing out that from the Shulchan Aruch it seems clear that the Hamapil is said after Shema. Kedei shetei abrucha smucha l'sheina. We want the bracha to be right connected to the sleep. The chayniker kenirli. Now, when we see the Lashon HaTorah v'Shulchan Aruch, from the way the Torah and the Shulchan Aruch ordered it, mashma the achar Shema yomer Hamapil, the achar kach yomer yoshev b'seisra elyon. But Tzarech Lamed the Taimo, the Mogen Avram says that the reasoning of the Torah and the Shulchan Aruch mishum the Shema ein oimer mishum shmira. Shema is not said as a shmira. Rak mishum delfina mikra armer bilvavchem kedisa b'gemara. Shetzarech Lamed divrei Torah o bakasha samach l'sheina. So the reciting Torah near sleep is fulfilled by the Shema. So lachein tzarech lo'omer according b'chas hamapil shlo yehefsek bein bracha l'shina. We want to go there. We don't want to have any hefsek of Shema between the bracha and sleep. Yosher b'seiser ve'ein chadavim mishum shmir lo hefsek. Those psukim are not considered hefsek. Some of the psukim mentioned by Shulchan Aruch are not found in the Gemara. Rather, Rav Amram Gon in his Machzer, he put it in there. That's what the Torah says. And the Psukim in Tilim 30 mentioned in the Gemara, not recited when going to sleep. back to the text of the Mogen Avram. Aval Rambam Perek Zayin and the Hagois Maimonios, the commentary on the Rambam there, Svir Luhu, Shagam Shema Omer Bachroina, that no, the Shema should be said at the end. Kach Kosov Rav David Avudram, B'Shem Rabbeinu Hai Gon, the Svir Luhu Degam Shema Havi Mishum Shmira. So it's Machlokes Harishoinim and Goinim, whether the Shema was said as a protection or just as Divrei Torah. For the Magen Avram, the Rambam places Shema after Hamapil because Shema is also recited for protection prior to going to sleep, and it's not deemed a hefsek after the brach of Hamapil. The Shulchan Aruch, on the other hand, deemed Shema a hefsek, since in his opinion Shema is recited only to conclude one's days with words of Torah before retiring for the night, but not for protection, like Hamapil. The Mishmar notes that Achronim take different positions concerning which opinion to follow practically. The Mishnah Berurah recommends delaying Hamapil until the end, the way the Shulchan Aruch said, until one falls asleep in the middle of reciting Shema or the Psukim. In this case, he recommends reciting Hamapil. We saw above in Ramah that one should not eat or drink between reciting the bedtime Shema and sleeping. The Mishnah Berurah discusses what a person should do if he feels thirsty after saying Shema. V'im ta'av lishtos, if he's thirsty, or l'davar eze inyan achutz, or something that he needs, near a shemuter. Ach yachzor v'yikra parsha Shema, should read Shema again. Achenim kvar amar bracha pechas hamapil, yizar b'zaki yafzik bein bracha lashina. You should not drink anything after the pechas hamapil, because that would be a hefsek. According to the Mishnah Berurah, interrupting between a mapil and sleep is more problematic than interrupting after saying Shema alone. The Piskei Tshuva explains that the Mishnah Berurah understands the bracha of a mapil to be similar to brachos made on food, where it's forbidden to interrupt between the bracha and eating. However, he argues that most poskim disagree with this understanding, maintaining that a mapil is simply a bracha of praise. According to this, interrupting between a mapil and sleep is permitted if a need arises. Uvederach zakosov gam b'bir halacha, which is a commentary of the Chofetz Chaim on the Mishnah Berurah. The mistapik shema lo yuchal achakach lishon b'vadei en kedai l'chatchila levarich. If he's not sure he'll be able to sleep, you shouldn't make the bracha. Amnan rubam kekulam shogdola doiros. V'apoiskim eskimu pe'echad, but most of the gdolim agree. The divrei achaye adam shekosav aval b'layla filu lo yoshen klal. If a person didn't sleep at night, but he said the bracha, lavi levatala, the yesh omer shetiknos al minhag oilam. It's made as a minhag, k'mo birchas hashachar, like you make these brachas when you wake up in the morning, you make this bracha when you go to sleep. If he's not going to go to sleep, he's going to work all night, you shouldn't make a bracha mapil. Or he has a feeling he's not going to be able to fall asleep. Part of the bracha is you're going to put sleep on my eyes. But if he's planning to go to sleep, so Yivarach brachazu, even though in the end he didn't have an easy time to fall asleep, because it's not a bracha levatol. Valpi maskonazu shebirchas hamapil niskanet biikar bishvach loydam in agos shaloylam. This bracha is a praise to Hashem on normal habits of human beings. You cannot go through life without sleeping. It's part, you wake up, you go to sleep. And it's not a birchas haneni. So naktinin l'maisashim adam ra'evot samaf, he's hungry or thirsty. Or davar nachut slo l'daber, he has to speak. Or la'asok v'niskar b'kach la'achshik kvar bircha mapil. Or something like this comes up after he made bracha mapil, muter la'afsik l'tzorach kach. V'afilu yafsik hafsok ha'gemur v'yasich taitu mashena. And even if he took his mind out of sleep, he doesn't have to make a bracha again. For example, I used to get woken up 1 o'clock in the morning on call, and I'm woken up and I'm awake and I deal with the nurse, this, that, whatever, or I go into the hospital and I have to do something. I come back, I go to sleep. You see clearly for me, you don't make another bracha mapil. The first bracha mapil takes care of that. According to the Piskei Teshuvos, if one remembers that he must tell something important to someone or one's child starts to cry after reciting a mapil, he is permitted to speak and he doesn't have to recite it again. In some mystical writings, the concern of interrupting between a mapil and sleep is treated very seriously. So much so as to recommend saying the bracha without Hashem's name if one may need to interrupt or speak afterwards. Similarly, these writings say that a mapil should not even be said after midnight or at other certain times of the year. And Rav Mordechai Leo writes accordingly in his siddur. Before he goes to sleep, he should say without the name of Hashem. The Yahar Hashem Malchus Belibo, you should just think about the name of Hashem. Because maybe you'll have to speak afterwards. Even if you're not worried about speaking later. After Chatzois, you shouldn't say Birchas HaMapil with the name of Hashem. Umelel Beishel Rosh Hashanah at Shmini Atzeres Ein Levach Birchas HaMapil at all. The vast majority of poskim disagree and maintain that one should not forgo the bracha of a mapil. For example, Rav Ovadia writes that a mapil should be said fully even after midnight. Rav Ovadia originally wrote that one should take into account the mystical considerations and not say Hashem's name after midnight, but he subsequently retracted, and this was verbally confirmed in shiurim given by his sons. Says Yichavedas, he says after Chatzos he makes a mapil. He uses the name of Hashem. Accordingly, the Piskei Teshuvah rules then one must recite the bracha of a mapil if one goes to sleep before dawn, unless one has a clear tradition to the contrary. Somebody goes to sleep between midnight and alois. Unless somebody had received a tradition. We saw in the Gemara in source 52 that at Batem one must say from Shema to Vayam Shemoah. The Rif understands that to Vayam Shemoah is not inclusive, and only the first paragraph, the Hafta, must be said. The Rambam agrees with this understanding as well, but the Rosh mentions that according to Rabbeinu Chananel, the second paragraph of Shema should also be said. Says the Rosh, "Anichnas lishon amitosa omer Shema ad vayam shemov." Rabbeinu Chananel kosav gam parsha shniya lefi sheyesh ba b'shach kol kumeh. Rabbeinu Yerucham writes that some have the practice to say all three paragraphs. Lekach yeshomim also kulo al mitoso ad techem emes loymar kolar emavtim, all 248 letters. Lishmor kol ramach evarav, to protect the 248 limbs. K'dichsiv shmor mitzvosai v'chayei shmor ramach tevo sheli v'shmor ramach evram shemcha. You watch my 248 letters of Shema, and I'll watch your 248 limbs. We saw in the Shulchan Aruch rules with respect to this issue that you should only have to say V'ahavta, the first parsha. However, the Mishnah Berurah writes that it's good to say all three sections, as brought by the Rabbeinu Yerucham. Tov lomer tamid kol kriya shema shiremach tevos b'tziruf kel melech nom. You have to say kel melech nom to get the 248. Some poskim, such as the Aruch HaShulchan, writes that there's no need whatsoever to recite all three parshas, as the Gemara 60b clearly rules that one need only recite the first paragraph, and he concludes that's the common custom. Another question relevant to Shema before going to sleep is whether one may lie down while reciting it. The sources for this question were discussed in detail in volume 10, Shir 5. In light of those sources, it would seem that the Ramah would recommend sitting or standing, unless this is difficult, while the Shulchan Aruch would permit lying down even lechatchila. The Bir Halacha notes that Achronim dispute whether Ashkenazim should rule in accordance with the Ramah in this case, but he recommends that in practice one should be strict and recite it while sitting or standing. And Okay,
Hmm.
Baruch Hashem, we finished volume 15. That was a long volume. Okay, let's turn to volume 16, the Weiss family volume.
Page 23.
He says, the Shulchan Aruch says you can do it lying down,
Good.
but the Ramah,
Who do we follow?
the Ashkenazim, he recommends that you do it standing or sitting.
Most people lie down. You think? Or sitting.
Susie's weighing in and says that most people do it
Maybe
lying
not.
down.
Maybe not.
Okay. Page 23. In the next few volumes of the Tzurba, few volumes, it's 16, 17, 18, 19 at least. We will be studying Hilchos Shabbos. Those of you who have the standard 6-volume Mishnah Berurah, because we're learning Orach Chaim. The Mishnah Berurah only comments on Orach Chaim, doesn't comment on the other sections. So we've now completed the first 2 volumes of those. If you have a 6-volume Mishnah Berurah, we've now completed. It ends with Mincha Ma'ariv and Kriya Shema Lamita, and then volume 3 of the Mishnah Berurah begins Hilchos Shabbos. And also there, it's at least 2 volumes, and then volume 5 has some more Shabbos and Yontif. And then volume 6 is all Yontif. Okay, so although Shabbos comes only once a week, it plays a central role in the Jew's religious life. And if observed properly, the bracha and holiness that it brings can spread to the rest of the week as well. In this volume, we will focus mainly on some of the positive mitzvahs related to Shabbos, which include preparing for Shabbos, the tefillos of Shabbos, and candle lighting. Our shiurim on Hilchos Shabbos will generally follow the order in which the topics are presented in the Shulchan Aruch. So there are restrictions 3 days before Shabbos. In the interest of preserving the special sanctity of Shabbos, Chazal instituted a number of enactments, takanot, which are observed already during the week, sometimes days away from Shabbos. In this section, we will focus on those that apply beginning 3 days before Shabbos. The Gemara in Shabbos cites 2 braisos that list activities that one may not perform 3 days before Shabbos, including setting out on a long voyage at sea and waging optional warfare. The reason for both stems for concern that the activities involved will cause Chilul Shabbos. The Gemara also makes an exception to the rule in cases of a mitzvah or danger to a life. Ton Rabban. Ein mafligin b'sfin, this is Shabbos Yud Tes Amud Aleph. Ein mafligin b'sfina pachos mishlosh yom kodem Shabbos. You may not take off on a boat trip Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 3 days before Shabbos. You may not go on a boat trip. That means if you're going to go on a boat trip, you have to go Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday.
Really? Never been on a boat trip.
Bamedvar mamorim lidvar rishus. That's if you're going on a pleasure trip for something that's not a mitzvah. Aval lidvar mitzvah shapir dami. But if you're going on a mitzvah, that's an exception, and you could travel even within the 3 days. Uposik imo amnash lishpos ve'inashovis divi Rebbe. He makes a tanai with the captain of the boat that he stops the ship. Now, if the captain doesn't listen, that's okay. As long as you attempted to tell the captain to stop, you that's what you should do. However, you don't have to make this tonight. You don't have to go to the captain and don't go through any of that. Now, now, from Tyre to Sidon, which is, they were two coastal cities in Lebanon, you're permitted to travel even Erev Shabbos. That's, what is this? Hello? כן, אני נותן שיעור עכשיו בצורבה מרבנן. אני אגמור ב9:30 פה בלוס אנג'לס. תטלפן ב9:30. בבקשה, תודה. That's a rabbi. Okay. Torah Rabbanan, ein tzorn al ha'irois shel nachrim pachas b'shel shem yomim kodem Shabbos. You don't begin a siege of a city Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. V'mischilu ein mafsik. Now, if against the halacha they started, you don't stop. V'chen hayashamai omer ad ridito afilu b'Shabbos. That, and the siege can continue even on Shabbos. Now, this law that we just learned in the Gemara regarding not taking a boat trip for 3 days before Shabbos is codified in the Shulchan Aruch. Muter laflik b'sfina filu b'erev Shabbos. Im holech lidvar mitzvah. So right away he starts with the exception. He says if you're going for a mitzvah, you can travel even on Friday. But Poisek Moshe Yishbos, he paskins like Rebbe, that you should try to tell the captain to stop the boat on Shabbos. If the boat doesn't stop, you don't have a problem. But for pleasure or business, you can't take a boat trip 3 days prior to Shabbos. The Ramah comments, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, of course it's permitted. Even in a case where the Jew will be on the boat, I'm not sure why he says the Jew will be compelled to perform malach on Shabbos. He's not doing malach on Shabbos by just being a passenger on the ship.
Unless he's rowing the boat. Yeah, that's a melacha, right?
I think, I'm not sure. We'll have to see what the Mishnah Berurah says about the Ramah. What is the concern of Shabbos desecration that prompted Chazal to legislate this halacha? In his introduction to the Siman, the Mishnah Berurah summarizes various reasons given by the Rishonim for this prohibition and why you're allowed to go Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, even though it might lead to a malacha. Listen, when you're on a boat, there's potentially life-threatening things that can occur where you might have to do a malacha to save your life. In general, being on a boat is a makam sakanahu. Or the non-Jew will do a malacha for you. For example, tying the rope or sharchilulim. Or mishum yisr tchumin, you're traveling more than 2,000 ames. Kimavur beveis Yosef barichus. So that's why we don't want the Jew to go 3 days before Shabbos. You are not going to be enjoying Shabbos. To call Gimel Yomim Marishonim Yesh Lem Tsar Machmas Nanu Asfina. First of all, you're going to get seasick. Shagufo Mishtaber is it feels like your body is broken. Even David HaMelech understood what it means to be seasick. The guy Machmas Sirchon HaOlam and Hayomim HaMluchin. There's bad smell from the salt water. Vein Rucho Choseres. Love Arachar Gimel Yomim Shorkel Bezeh. His nefesh doesn't sort of return to him until after 3 days, where he gets used to it. So, according to the approach of Pikuach Nefesh, one may not place oneself in a situation within 3 days before Shabbos, in which it is clear that it will be necessary to violate Shabbos due to Pikuach Nefesh. Now, according to the 2000 Amos issue, that's stated by Rabbi Hananel. So according to that, sailing, if you sail in an ocean or river that are more than 10 tefachim deep, the rules of Tchum don't apply, which we're going to discuss in a later shiur. So according to that mandomer, there wouldn't be a problem. Back to the Mishnah Berurah. Yeshoimim, there are times sha'asur la'aflik b'sfina. The reason that there was a prohibition made to go on a boat, it appears as if you're floating and swimming on Shabbos. You might construct a swimmer's tube, like a surfboard. Since you have to travel way before Shabbos, you have a reminder about Shabbos. You won't construct this swimmer's thing on Shabbos. The also not poskim and iskram le'el, the poskim that we mentioned above, the svirlu that tamu mishum malacha, that the reason is because where you're going to do a malacha on Shabbos or mishum tchumin, mashachilika baraisa lididu bein toch gimel yomim lekodim gimel yomim. What's the difference between 3 days right before and before that? Hu mishum deshloisha yomim kodim Shabbos mikri kame Shabbos. The 3 days before Shabbos, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, are called before Shabbos. The chalalav yizar shelo yavlo dechilul Shabbos. Already in those 3 days, you have to be worried about not being mechal Shabbos. Aval kodim gimel yomim deheim mikri basar Shabbos ha'ovar. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday are called after Shabbos. Aday lo chalalav azar Shabbos haba. This sort of worry about the next Shabbos hasn't triggered yet. V'shari la'aflik behem. And therefore you can sail in those. If Pikuach Nefesh comes up, then Shari. So there are 3 general approaches why Chazal forbade going out to sea. A person must avoid a situation in which one would be forced to violate Shabbos in some manner, like tying a rope, traveling past the Tchum, due to the inherent danger of the situation. 2, early voyage seasickness would impair one's ability to enjoy Shabbos, or related to the rabbinic decree not to swim on Shabbos. One could have inferred from here that where none of these concerns are relevant, such as you set out to sail in a river, where there is no concern of canceling one's own Shabbos and seasickness is not as bad, or the vessel's crew members are not Jewish, and the water is at least 10 tefachim deep, it would be permitted to set sail even within 3 days prior to Shabbos. And that's the ruling of the Shulchan Aruch. Though today, the other concerns on board mentioned in the ensuing discussion, the next few footnotes will still apply. Today's sea travel is not as common as in earlier periods. And for most people, it's usually limited to vacation cruises. Ratzvi Goldberg of the Star K reinforces that the decree of Chazal applies to this type of sea travel today as well. And he discusses a few other points relevant to embarking on kosher cruises 3 days before Shabbat. You can find the full article here in the footnotes. It brings on other halacha concerns of kosher cruises, such as kashrus, tznius, Shabbos concerns such as automatic doors and toilets. Okay? Chazal decreed that it's forbidden to undertake a journey by sea within 3 days of Shabbos. Although the Rishonim do not agree on the reasoning behind the decree, the primary concern is that a person may get seasick, be unable to enjoy Shabbos. Sailing 3 days before Shabbos allows time for a person to adjust to the motion of the sea. This concern may seem negligible today, but once Chazal have established a decree, we have no right to abolish it. Moreover, some travelers do get seasick on board cruise ships. Although ships may not toss in the sea, the waves in constant motion often wreak havoc on one's equilibrium. However, there are two lenient factors to keep in mind. According to Vilna Gaon, the 3 days are Thursday, Friday, and Shabbos. Wednesday was not included in the decree, permitting one to embark on a journey on Wednesday. See Mishnah Berurah, who notes that according to the majority of commentaries, the prohibition does take effect on Wednesday. But according to the Groth, the 3 days begin with Thursday. Second, according to all opinions, one is permitted to embark any weekday if the ship docks before Shabbos and remains in port during that Shabbos. Sailing on a ship with Jewish sailors. The discussion of sailing before Shabbos so far is focused on issues that arise even when the crew consists entirely of Gentiles. If some of the crew is Jewish, a situation that may arise when taking a cruise from Israel, then the halachic issues are more serious. Rav Goldberg notes in his article that even if the crew are Gentiles, but most of the passengers are Jewish, it also may be halachically problematic to take such a cruise, since the Gentiles are performing malacha mainly for the Jewish majority on the ship. And that approach is based on the interpretation of the Rambam quoted above the Mishnah Berurah. It's worth noting, however, that the Shulchan Aruch does not mention this approach. Rav Moshe Feinstein discusses this question: is one permitted to embark on such a cruise even if it departs from the port early in the week? Rav Moshe Feinstein discusses this question and arrives at a lenient ruling. He notes that a Jew is permitted to set sail early in the week, and he not concern himself with the potential Shabbos desecration that will take place later. Hence, in the case of Jewish passengers traveling on the ship, it's no worse than that, since they do not specifically desire to benefit from malacha done by the Jewish sailors. Says the Igros Moshe, V'ashe'elah, shebekani rak le'ezu yichidim, you have a few individuals who want to go on a cruise. Im mutar lisa b'sfina zu, af she'em lo yasu malacha. And most of the passengers are not Jewish, and even though they themselves will not do malacha, hayavru al hanoam im lecha Shabbos she'avar Yisrael b'mezi. He will benefit from malacha. We're talking about there's Jewish sailors on the boat, and this Jewish passenger is going to benefit from work that a Jew did b'mezi. It's no worse than the Jew performing malacha himself. Shem hifli palav beis gimel mutter. We said before that if you travel Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, you're allowed to do it, even though there's a chashash you might do malacha. Af biyadua sheyeh achar kach pikuach nefesh v'tzarich lasot malacha. Even though there might be a situation of pikuach nefesh and he will need to perform malacha, he cannot stop the ship in the middle. Here is certainly permitted because he's not doing any maisa. He's sort of forced to benefit. And some do not benefit, at least from the propelling of the boat, because they don't care if they're in the travel, if it's delayed. It should be noted that Rav Moshe's permission to benefit from the malacha performed by Jewish crew relates specifically to guiding the ship to its destination. Even Rav Moshe does not permit deriving benefit from other malacha performed by the Jewish crew on behalf of the passengers, like cooking and other things that they're not allowed to do. Many Achronim forbid embarking on a cruise whose crew consists exclusively of Jewish sailors, especially since today one can cast anchor in the middle of the ocean, and it's not necessary to violate Shabbos. According to this argument, the Jewish sailors are performing unnecessary malacha when propelling the ship and performing other general maintenance and administrative tasks on Shabbos. Therefore, a Jew may not benefit from these activities as a passenger. This differs from the ruling of the Ramah brought above, according to which Jews are permitted to perform labors on Shabbos if they have set sail more than 3 days before. The Ramah's ruling applies to labors which are necessary in order for the ship to remain afloat, but that would not apply to our circumstances regarding unnecessary labors. This is the opinion of Rav Ovadia Yosef and Lubavitcher Rebbe that you should not go on a boat which has Jewish workers. Aniyos Yisraelios, Israeli-owned ships, she'hakarbanit, that the captain, the crew are mostly Jews, and they're propelling the ship normally on Shabbos. They're not throwing anchor and stopping the boat in the middle of the ocean. But that act is leading to many Isser Malachos. They could throw the anchor, or they could dock at a port from when Shabbos comes in until Shabbos leaves. There's no danger. Rav Ovadia Yosef Paskins, you should not travel with that company. Ukvara Admir Milubavitch, Pirsem Chavazdat's Etzel Rabbanei Eretz HaKodesh. The Lubavitch Rebbe also paskin the same way, because of should be real Yedei Mumchim Dolim Shein Shum Sakona in Yaminum Erev Shabbos Esaniya Belev Yam. He asked a lot of experts that there would be no danger if they threw anchor in the middle of the sea. Oliade is a namal or a port. They have many ports and islands. He pushed away with both hands. He said, oh, the boat travels automatically. He rejected that. Person doesn't need to control it on Shabbos. He says that's not correct. That there are desecrations being done for people who travel on a ship. The Dayan Weiss, the Minchas Yitzchak, Rav Yitzchak Yaakov Weiss, takes the same position. In Malachei Asfina Manigei Yehudim, if the sailors and the captains are Jews, even Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you can't go on such a trip. You may not benefit from work done by Jews on Shabbos. What are you over? It says, don't put a stumbling block in front of a blind person, that you're doing that to have a Jew do work for you. And even though there are other Jews going on this boat, you should not go. Thus far, we have addressed the specific issue of traveling within 3 days of Shabbos, as discussed by the Shulchan Aruch. The poskim discuss whether this halacha also influences other cases in which actions in a later part of the week may lead to necessary labors to preserve life on Shabbos. According to many poskim, such as the Yalkut Yosef and Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, other activities which would lead to a violation of Shabbos, such as surgery, should also be forbidden 3 days prior to Shabbos, so long as it could be safely delayed until after Shabbos. The Tashbats discusses performing a delayed Brit Milah. You're talking about this is after the 8th day. You can't, and therefore you can't do that if it's 9 or 10 days after the child's born, you can't do it on Shabbos anymore, and you want to do it towards the end of the week, he says it should be there until Sunday, so as to avoid creating a situation in which you have to do malachas for the baby on Shabbos. The Shach and others rejected the ruling of the Tashbeids within the context of Mila, since this may be defined as a mitzvah action. It's not a rishus, which is permitted even shortly before Shabbos. Nevertheless, Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach notes that the logic of the Tashbat should certainly apply to elective surgery. The Yalkut Yosef says, "L'fia amur yotzei shemiyom hei b'shavua ve'elach," from Thursday on, also lasos ma'aseh shekatzotzah mimenu yotzar matzav shel pikuach nefesh. You shouldn't get involved in anything that could lead to pikuach nefesh on Shabbos. V'yetzarach l'chal Shabbos. V'lachein b'nituach she'eino dakuf, a non-emergent surgery, kegon nituach shkedim, tonsillectomy. Yesh l'kovo l'tchilas hashavua. You should schedule it early in the week. You may have to do something after the operation. You might as well do it earlier in the week when you're not going to be Chal Shabbos. Some are makel, more lenient. Let's say this expert surgeon, his day of operating is Thursday or Friday. And you can't get him to change. Of course, if the surgery was done, they didn't listen to the halacha, and they went and did the nituach. So of course, you're allowed to chal Shabbos if it's necessary. For emergency surgery, there's no question that you're allowed to have an emergency surgery Thursday and Friday as well. Modern forms of transportation before and on Shabbos. Some of the considerations discussed about sailing are raised in the context of a Jew riding other forms of transportation on Shabbos when operated by Gentiles. The Piskei Tshuva summarizes a discussion of the Chassam Sofer and others concerning how to apply these issues with respect to boarding a train or a plane before Shabbos. Uvinyan Nesiya b'Rakevet, traveling on train, v'chashmaliyot, trolleys, shel nochrim, v'rov nosei nochrim. These are driven by goyim, and most of the passengers are goyim. HaChassam Sofer oiser, the Chassam Sofer forbid it. Sharia layabasha yesh isur tchumin. On land, you can't go more than 2,000 amas. According to the Omar, that says above 10 tvachim, there's no tchum problem. A vehicle which is 4 tvachim wide, there is a problem of tchum. You wouldn't be able to go on a train 3 days before Shabbos. If you know that the train is going to continue on Shabbos, let's say you're going on a cross Europe train ride, which is going to go from France to China. The gufo misnaded b'nesiya. Your body sways back and forth. Umikri bitul onik Shabbos. You're going to get seasick again. L'chen asur nesiya b'toch ha'ir. You cannot travel even within the city, even though he doesn't leave the tchum. So, according to Chassam Sofer, there are 2 reasons to forbid boarding a train or plane before Shabbos, which will continue to travel on Shabbos, even when you do any other malachas. You're going to leave the tchum. That wasn't relevant in the case of sea travel because the sea is more than 10 tvachim deep. It's going to negate onik Shabbos because the rif, like he said about sea travel, getting seasick, you can have the same thing on the train. Other poskim raise the issue, each individual increases the amount of electricity used. But they don't discuss that more. However, the Chassam Sofer concludes with perhaps an even more fundamental reason forbidding riding a train or plane on Shabbos, based upon the Ramban's interpretation of the concept of Shabbos. V'nira shamedrash hazeh loymar, shenitztavinu min haTorah liyos lanu menucha b'yontav. We've been given a commandment to rest on Yontif, afilu midvorim she'ena malacha, even from things that are not malacha. Lo sheyitrach kol hayom limdod atfuos. You shouldn't measure grain, v'lishkol aperos, or weigh fruit. Ve'amatkois, metals. L'malach chavis yayin, fill barrels of wine. L'fanos hakelim, put away the kelim. The gamavon mibeis lebeis u'makom u'makom. We are told not to do this on Yontif, even though they're not real malacha. The shuk mole, to have the market open, and storekeepers giving credit, workers waking up, if it were, all these activities would be missed on Yontif and even Shabbos. There's no Av Malacha being done with all these things. We want Shabbos and Yontif to be not a day of toil. It should be a day of rest. The Ramban emphasized that the essential identity of Shabbos demands taking a step back from physical exertion, even when such exertion does not involve acts of formal labor. The Chassam Sofer states that this concept also applies to traveling. You have a concept of shvus. V'imkein, meina regilim, v'tzorach lomer, the shiny yeshivat sfina, the yoshev, v'shoivis. Now, he makes a distinction. On a boat, you're resting. Like you're in a stateroom, you're in your bedroom. The water is relaxing him. He's resting. Aval noisim bedamf. Damf is the steam engine. At the time the Chassam Sofer, they were already starting with trains. The Dampfwagen, or a wagon driven by steam. Eino shoives. It's not calm. Gufo na v'nad. It's moving. He can't relax and rest on Shabbos like he does it at home. So, according to the Ramban's understanding that this concept of shvus is a deraisa, some Sofer says you would be over even a deraisa.
Ernie, the same should apply to any cruise line, whether you leave the first 3 days of the week or the last 3 days. The ship is moving during that period of time.
Yeah, but it's moving. But you heard what the Chassam Sofer said, that in a boat, the person is yoishev v'shoives, kemor b'cheder mitaso. He's in a bedroom, lying on his bed, sleeping. It's not like being on a train, which is bustling and moving and shaking around. I mean, again, that according
Depends on the
to
ocean,
what
though.
his understanding is, you can relax on Shabbos, so you're not violating that dictum of the Ramban. Because remember, the Shulchan Aruch said if you travel on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, you're allowed to go on a boat if they know you're going to be on the boat on Shabbos. There's no prohibition there. So this question is why. So he now explained it, because on a boat you can at least fulfill that concept of rest on Shabbos, but you can't do in a train.
So what is the difference if you leave on Wednesday or Thursday then?
No,
If you're in the same boat and relaxing.
No, so we went through the whole. We said
I understand that, but using that logic that you're telling me, the Chassam Sofer.
no, but we came up with multiple reasons why you can't travel Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You might do a malacha. So that's all. We didn't have that issue, remember, because we said if you travel Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, you're going to remind yourself you're not going to do it. You're going to make that swim tube. So there were different reasons for the 3 days. This actually explains why you're allowed to go Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, even though you're going to be on the boat on Shabbos, because it's not like a train, because it's allowing you not to violate this principle that was just elucidated by the Ramban, that you have to be in a calm way on Shabbos. Now, this is just a Chassam Sofer. We'll see what the Ritzitz Eliezer says. I'm going to stop here. And of course, we're on our way with Hilchos Shabbos. We're going to be in the Erev Shabbos for quite a while, preparing for Shabbos. But it's a good start. Any other comments, questions, or arrows?
So if you're going on a ship, and the ship, the ocean, the water is more than 10 tefachim deep, which is, not very deep, then there's no tchum issue.
Yes,
The only tchum issue is on land.
yes.
Okay.
And then he said, if you're in a vehicle, even if you're in a vehicle, then you have a tchum problem.
Yeah, because I always thought that one of the issues on the ship was the tchum issue. In fact, I was told that by a
So,
Rav.
so some of the tchum issue is not. So if you're on a river that's not deep, you might have a tchum issue.
Yeah, 10 tefachim is pretty shallow. I don't know.
Pretty
how
shallow.
I know the neighbor could go on a water that's less than 10 tefachim.
If you were on an elevated train above 10 tvachim, again, there would be no tchum issue.
Yeah, it had to be a certain width. The vehicle had to be a certain width.
Yeah, you said that to be 4 tvachim.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
We'll
Is
see
it
about
you
that.
that have to be for trucking,
What's
or is
that?
the vehicle?
The vehicle.
Well, a train, even if you're on a platform high, it's still touching the ground.
No, but what if you were on an elevated train, like a monorail, like in Disneyland, and that kind of train conveyed you the whole way, at least you wouldn't have a tchum problem. I don't know if that, like in Japan, I think, don't they have a bullet train that's elevated?
Oh, that's something different. It's floating.
The maglev.
Yeah.
But it's built so it's above the ground. If it's more than 10 tefachim, at least it would solve the tchum problem. But it may not be everywhere. It may be on the ground at other places. I don't know how that works.
With regard to the river cruise being potential problem based on the depth less than 10 tefachim, that's why all the kosher river cruises dock before Shabbos and don't leave that port until Motzei Shabbos.
There you go. There you go.